Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. The Italian poet Dante Alighieri wrote this line in his famous Divine Comedy in the 14th century. That's almost 700 years ago. The line is quite famous. It shows up in the story when the main character, Dante himself, enters the gates to hell. It's a fancy way of saying keep out or danger. And this wonderful line from literature leads us to today's key word. Can you guess what it is? Welcome to Lexi Essential English Vocabulary. Here at Lexi, we believe that learning vocabulary is the most important factor in developing your English speaking, reading, writing, and listening abilities. In this series, we will learn a lot about vocabulary that is essential for university lectures, standardized tests such as the SAT, TOEFL, TOEIC, or IELTS, as well as business conversations. The best way to learn a word is to see what it means, how it's used, and when it's used. Today's vocabulary term is the word abandon. Okay, let's get started, guys. First, let's start with the pronunciation for this word. Abandon has 3 syllables. The first syllable is unstressed, the second is stressed, and the third is unstressed. So the way to say it correctly is abandon. Please listen and repeat. Abandon. Good. How about the past participle form of abandon? It's actually very similar, but this might be difficult for some speakers. Remember that there are still only 3 syllables here. The first syllable is the second is ban, and the last is dund. So it ends with a d sound. So if you say it all together, it sounds like this. Abandoned. Please try it. Abandoned. Very good. Okay, now let's move on to some definitions. And if you notice, it's definitions plural, because the word abandon can have different meanings depending on the words that it's featured with. So the first most common way of thinking of the word abandon is as a verb, and actually the first 3 definitions I will give you are all the verb forms of abandon. The most common form of the word abandon as a verb is the form that means to leave alone and never return to. So I'm going to give you an example sentence. The boy was abandoned by his parents at the beach. I know this is a very sad sentence, but actually the more emotional a sentence is, the more likely you will remember it. So this will help you to remember that abandon does have this kind of negative or sad connotation, sad feeling to it. Let's look at a second definition of abandon. The second definition I have for you is to leave a dangerous place. So actually in this case, it is still a bit sad, but it's actually done for a good reason. So for example, residents were forced to abandon their homes when the nearby volcano began to erupt. So you can see in this sentence, it's very important that the residents, that is the people that live in the place, are able to escape the volcano before it erupts or it explodes with ash and lava or rock. And this kind of thing happens every year. There are volcanoes all around the world, and a lot of times, unfortunately, people have to abandon their homes. The third definition of abandon is to quit doing something that you want to do. Let me give you an example sentence. Because my father got laid off, we had to abandon our vacation plans. So in this case, laid off means that you were let go from a job. You are not given an opportunity to continue working because maybe the company that you are working at doesn't need your work anymore. Maybe they have too many employees. The term laid off is a bit different from fired, which means that you are terminated or your job is finished because you did not do a good job. In this case, the narrator's father was probably a good worker, but just unfortunately lost his job. And because of that, the family had to abandon their plans to go on vacation. So unfortunately, no vacation for them. Now we're going to move on to the noun form of abandon, and in most cases you're going to see this used with a preposition. This term means a feeling of complete freedom, and it is actually slightly negative because when you say something with abandon, it means that you're doing something too freely. So here's the example sentence. After their final exams, the students drank and danced with reckless abandon. Here the word reckless means without caring about the danger of something. And so you can imagine when students finish their final exams, especially university students, they like to drink and, party and enjoy themselves because the hardship of the exams is over. However, sometimes they do this with abandon or with reckless or dangerous abandon, which means they do it with complete freedom, but it's not really what they should be doing. That's what we're trying to say. We're going to look now at some examples of synonyms and antonyms for the word abandon. Remember that synonyms are words that are like the keyword, and antonyms show words that have an opposite or very different meaning. And it's good to learn these because this is a way of expanding your vocabulary. I'm going to show you these synonyms and antonyms as phrases because I think we tend to remember words as part of phrases rather than as individual words. For the synonyms, I'm going to list them from easy to academic. In other words, the synonyms will become more difficult for you as we go down the list. Okay, let's get started. First, we have quit a routine, leave behind a pet, dump a boyfriend, discard an idea, forsake a wife, abdicate a crown. So I guess you can see that as we go down the list, it becomes a little bit more difficult to understand what is being said here. In the first line, when we quit a routine, it just means we stop doing something that we've planned to do for a while. Like, for example, if you have a routine to go to bed at 10 p.m. every night, and you realize that it's not practical, that you can't really keep doing it, then you might quit that routine. To leave behind a pet, in this case, means we don't take the pet with us. We abandon the pet. To dump a boyfriend, the word dump here is a very strong word, actually. It has a strong emotional connotation in English. Dump means to get rid of something. And in fact, we actually dump garbage. We dump things that we don't want in our life anymore. So you can imagine dump a boyfriend is a very strong expression. Discard, the idea of discard has the connotation, the feeling of something not that important to us anymore. So it's okay to get rid of it, almost like it's a card, like we have many cards and we just need to get rid of one card. Actually, in many games, you discard a card. And so you can imagine to discard an idea means to just stop thinking about this idea or not to use it anymore, not to go through with it. To forsake a wife means that you are abandoning her, especially in terms of your responsibilities as a husband. So if you are married to a woman and she is your wife, you have certain responsibilities as a husband. But if you forsake your wife, that means you're not really considering what you need to do to keep her happy or to make the relationship a good relationship. So you're abandoning your responsibilities in this case. You're forsaking your responsibilities. And the word forsake has a very strong moral kind of connotation. It means you're doing something wrong that you should be doing. Finally, we have abdicate a crown. Abdicate is a very specific word. It means you are abandoning your title, especially the title of a king, a queen, or a prince. And actually, in 2020, early 2020, there is a lot of news about this, especially in England, because part of the royal family wants to abdicate their position. They don't want to be responsible to their titles any longer. So to abdicate usually has to do with abandoning a position, especially a very high-level position like a kingship. The idea, again, is you are giving up your position so that someone else will take over your responsibilities. Now let's move on to some antonyms. Remember that these are words that have the opposite meaning to the word abandon. The first phrase we have is adopt a plan. Next, cherish a child. Remain at a party. Support a friend. So I think you can probably feel that all of these phrases, they have somewhat more positive connotation or feeling than the synonyms, because the word abandon has something negative to it. It's to give up something, right? To forsake, to discard something. All of those words should be in your mind kind of negative. But to adopt a plan, when we adopt something, we are completely making it a part of ourselves. Like, for example, you might adopt a child. But here we actually have adopt a plan. So this one's a little bit more business oriented. You can adopt a plan. That means you decide to go through with a plan that you set out. To cherish a child, I really love the word cherish. Cherish here means that you appreciate the child, that you really enjoy having this child in your life. So it's completely the opposite of abandoning them. You are not only taking care of them, you're enjoying it. To remain at a party just means that you're deciding not to leave. You're not going to just take off. You are deciding to stay. Maybe you don't necessarily want to stay at this party, but you're remaining at the place. You are not going to leave. And the last one is to support a friend. This is a really great expression. If you abandon a friend, it means that you're really not a good friend to them, right? You're just leaving them alone when they need your help. But when you support a friend, especially when they're having a hardship, it really means that you care about them and you want to be there for them. So these are all great words to know. So what we're going to do now is we're going to learn more about the keyword abandon, and especially the antonyms and synonyms that we've just discussed, because I'm going to give you some texts that come from the real world. And to make this a bit more interactive, I'm going to give you some examples as a reading close. So try to guess which of the answer choices best completes the sentences. First, we'll start with a line from the 2005 Academy Award-winning film Brokeback Mountain. This is one of the best lines in the movie, and I think a lot of people remember this line because it's so unique. It uses one of the words that we saw before in a creative way. And without giving you too much information about the movie, let's just say it's a love story. And the character that's saying this line is very upset because his partner just doesn't give him that much time, and he's thinking about ending the relationship. So this is what he says. I wish I knew how to you. So that blank space there that I didn't mention, that's where one of these words is going to fit in. So the words we have as choices are adopt, remain, cherish, and quit. Now just understand all of these words can actually grammatically fit into this sentence, into this slot, but only one of them is what would be found in the movie. And once you choose this answer, it should make sense to you why it's a kind of a powerful way of discussing the idea of abandoning or leaving a relationship. So I'll give you a few seconds, and then I'll show you the answer. So I hope you guessed correctly. The correct answer is D, quit. So the actual sentence, that the line that the character says is, I wish I knew how to quit you. Really, really powerful. The next text we have is actually a quote from a very famous entrepreneur and inventor, Thomas Edison. You will probably know him for the invention of the light bulb. And this is what Thomas Edison has to say. Just remember that Thomas Edison is famous not just for creating the light bulb, he's actually created many smart inventions. And he was such a die-hard inventor in the sense that he would be persistent. So this is what he said. If I find 10,000 ways something won't work, I haven't failed. I am not discouraged, because every wrong attempt is another step forward. So one of these 4 words fits into this slot. Take a few seconds and try to see if you can guess which is the correct answer. Did you guess it? The correct answer is C, discard. So in total, he said, if I find 10,000 ways something won't work, I haven't failed. That's a very impressive sentence, right? It means it doesn't matter how many times he fails, he still is not failing, actually. It doesn't matter how many times he doesn't succeed, it's not failure. And he continues by saying, I am not discouraged, I'm not saddened by this, because every wrong attempt, every time I try it, every wrong attempt discarded is another step forward. Very, very powerful sentence. Okay, the next text we have is from American journalist and writer Christopher Morley, and this is a really great sentence. He says, blank, all your happy moments, they make a fine cushion for old age. Here are the 4 answer choices. So take a few seconds. Okay, I hope you chose the correct answer. This is one of the words that I mentioned before that I really enjoyed listening to. It's one of my happy words. Can you guess what it is just by the hint I just gave you? It's definitely not abandon or abdicate. Those are negative words. So it's going to be either adopt or cherish. But this is a word that makes me feel happy whenever I hear it. And the answer is C, cherish. Cherish all your happy moments. They make a fine cushion for old age. This is a very interesting sentence. I just want you to think about this as you go through your day, but I think it does make sense, right? Your happy moments, anything that makes you happy today, these are things that will help you later in life, especially when you're having your hardships. It might not sound important, but the little things in life that we cherish, that we enjoy, really do have a big impact on our well-being and our self-esteem. So I'm going to end this video with one more example of a text that uses our keyword today. Quote, a poem is never finished, only abandoned. This is by French poet and philosopher Paul Valéry. I think this is a really great line just to finish our video today, because just like a lesson maybe is never finished, it's only abandoned. This lesson is definitely going to finish, but eventually you have to abandon the idea of learning more about the word abandon. This is enough and you have to move on. I really do hope that you enjoyed this lesson. If you did, please make sure to like this video, and if you'd like to see more content like this, please subscribe. And finally, if there are any words, phrases, or texts that you would like us to explore in future videos, please drop a comment down below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.